Okay, hi everybody. So today we're going to be talking about test anxiety, and I'm going to share my screen really quick, maybe. Okay, here we go. Test anxiety and English language learners. And this is from the article, How Does Anxiety Influence Language Performance from the Perspectives of Foreign Language Classroom Anxiety and Cognitive Test Anxiety. So first of all, to understand this, we need to understand kind of what anxiety is and what test anxiety is. And it's that feeling of nervousness and worry and unease that we sometimes get when we have a big event, a test, something new happens. It's pretty common. And it is also common with our English language learners. And what Zhang and Chang really comment on is the kind of like an anxiety cycle, for a lack of a better term. And what it pretty much says is that students, as their anxiety increases and they are concerned about doing poorly on a test or an assessment, that it ends up being a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that some studies claim that language anxiety is correlated to achievement, and that the high levels of anxiety are related to poor learning outcomes. So what does anxiety look like in our students so that we can recognize it? Because that's really important if we want to improve how they react to test anxiety. We need to know what it looks like. And test anxiety can look like any of these things. And I'm going to move this up really quick so you guys can see. So some kids say that they get shortness of breath, that their heart's pounding. Some kids get nauseous, some get headaches, they'll shake. And those are all things that you can see. But what's happening with test anxiety that you don't see, maybe, okay, is anxiety can also, it disrupts your complex learning, your test taking, your effective thinking, your problem solving. Once the anxiety is triggered, their stress is triggered. And so their stress response is triggered, and that affects our working memory. So what causes our students to have anxiety? Because now that we know what it's looking like, we can kind of see what is causing that anxiety. And one thing that can cause anxiety in students is the drive to be perfect. They don't want to make a mistake. They want to please you. They want to do what's right. And so we need to really, kind of tap into those kids that are perfectionists and try to help them realize that, hey, it's okay if you make a mistake. That's part of the learning process. Another thing that can cause anxiety is fear. This could be the first time a student is in an English classroom, an English-speaking classroom. It could be their first time in a new school. It could be they're afraid that they're going to do poorly. Anything that a student is afraid of can cause anxiety. Their culture. We need to understand the culture, our background, our students' backgrounds, and the culture that they're coming from may really demand that they are perfect and that they get those good grades. And being able to understand that, we can maybe understand where the anxiety is coming from. And so we really do need to understand, like, what is expected of them? What do their parents think? Some cultures believe that you have to perform at a high level. And so those are all things that we need to understand. Their personality can also affect their stress or their anxiety in the classroom. So if they have gotten in trouble before because they blurted out loud, or they spoke in a different language, or they acted up because they're extroverted, that could cause some anxiety because they're worried that they might make that same mistake. Or if they're shy, they don't want to talk in front of people. And so, that can cause some anxiety for them. And then stress, the outside world that our students are living in impacts what's going on the inside of the classroom. So teachers, again, this is where we do our background checks, and we need to be aware what's going on in their life. Have they just moved? Are they new? Do they know anybody? Any kind of outside stress can cause anxiety in our students. And so what as teachers can we do if our students are having test anxiety, and what we can do to help them overcome it is, number one, is build that relationship. If your student feels that you are positive and that they can trust you, they're gonna be able to come and say, I'm nervous, or they'll be able to reach out to you and you can reach out to them. And if you know that student, and sometimes a pat on the back can overcome a lot. Another thing is policies and procedures and practice. If a student is anxious, if they don't have to worry about what's coming next, they understand what's going on, what is happening next or coming, or what to expect, that's going to ease that anxiety a little bit. So making sure that you have procedures in place will also help with student anxiety and test anxiety. How you assess students can also help their anxiety. If you start with a hard question, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I don't know this. I don't know what to do. And so if you start with an easier question and build up from there, it's a little bit of like, oh, I can do that. I remember this. And they can go to the next and the next and build from there. So we can help our students by how we teach and how we assess them as well. Another thing that we can do is teach our students stress, anxiety relieving techniques, deep breathing. You can, kind of walk by and tell them like, hey, you're doing great, or, take a deep breath. All of those things that they can learn in the classroom that we can teach them so that that helps relieve those anxieties. And then the last thing that you can really do is build a environment where kids feel safe. Students need to feel safe. That if they feel safe, they will open up, they will let those barriers down, and they will be able to really intake the information that you're trying to give them. And so we need to build a classroom environment where they're not afraid to take a risk, that they feel safe, that they know that they're not going to get teased if they make a mistake. That's very important for students. And then this is my works cited. So thank you.